There we
Guys,
go.
it's great to see you, Chad.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you coming on as well. I'd like to introduce Josh McCallum from Accountable Equity. He is one of our preferred partners and super friend of the LFI community. Has always been instrumental in helping us out as we were getting our feet underneath of us. So we always want to thank Josh for what he's done for us in the community and everything else. So love having you on, love your insights and everything else. Looking forward to your discussion today.
Chad, we appreciate you. And this is a lunch and learn. So what we're going to do here is obviously I'm going to explain who we are uh, and why I fell in love with LFI a long time ago, and still appreciate you guys. Hope to be out in Ohio this year. Matter of fact, I'll be in Ohio this weekend, folks.
Oh,
Going to a program with my kids at Steubenville Franciscan University. So one of the fun things, Chad, is community. So please, you'll see this opportunity to become a friend of mine on LinkedIn. If you're on your iPhone, I know that's a pain in the butt. Just go to LinkedIn and type in my name. We're going to be talking about distressed debt, distressed hospitality, and how you can leverage it for growth. But before that, we have to do a public service announcement. You know this guy, right, Chad? Your buddy Whitney Sewell, a big investor with us at Accountable Equity, a good friend. We love him, and Melanie and I donate to his charity is our #1 charity we contribute to. It's called the Omna Foundation. If you're not aware of it, I'd love to introduce it to you today for 1 second. It's where Whitney has poured his heart and built an entire team to help families adopt children. And what it does is it takes away some of that financial burden that makes it almost impossible for a loving, growing family to adopt. So we donate to that. We actually are doing a VIP kind of executive level golf outing for him on the 18th. And if you want to join us, I'd love for you guys. It's just a donation. Please consider it later in August. Community is why LFI exists, but you're not the only ones who thought of this, Chad. Jim Rohn and all of us agree we need to be in the room with great people. And one sad thing is, Chad, I don't get to see our audience. Do you get to see our audience today? Are they as good looking as you?
we're going to assume they're better looking than you or I both. So, but yeah, but we got 20. So that's great. We love seeing that on a summertime lunch and learn. You never know what we're going to get. So it shows your popularity. The community loves you, man.
I love you. I can't wait to see you. We'll spend time together in person in Ohio. Jim Rohn said it. You and I believe it. Jim Rohn was the philosopher of business, and I've never thought about this until I saw you guys. So he says 5 people. Is it 5 people? The 5 people, and you guys created LFI with 5 people. I just put that together. I just did this by accident. So you look at those handsome devils with their jerseys. I've been really excited to welcome these 2 folks into the keynote round of our company where we do learn and grow events, and we've had both of your key players. Of course, Jim is one of your co-founders, and everybody knows Travis, and you guys do a lot with TribeVet. Both have been keynotes with us, and I just want to keep investing in your community. And of course, this is how I met Jim, was by grabbing him on the show, and then that was my introduction. That was almost 200 shows ago. Well, 150 shows ago. So that was a while ago. Please join us on the podcast. You'll enjoy it. And if you've ever wanted to be on a show and you have an important story to share about you using your own wit and skill to get into a deal, this is a great show for you. So join us and let me know if you want to be a guest, because I'm lining up guests for the fall. The one quick story is that I put my money where my mouth is, and we commit to community. My wife says we're in the baby making business. We are in the people loving business, the people making business, and that's why we're in hospitality and in distress, which is a key word in our life. As a matter of fact, today we were able to serve an entire community called Accountable Equity, and Accountable Equity is a little bit like Left Field Investors meet a big private equity group. Okay, it's kind of a push together. It's always been built on creating community. There's people that come to our events that don't actually invest with us, but because they come to our events, they meet other great people and do deals with them. And that's great. That's kind of like Left Field Investors. And then, of course, we build deals together, right? So that's who we are. I've introduced ourselves. We have another 5 points to go over here before we're done. And this QR code is the presentation. So if you're like, he's going quick, because I am going to go quick after this. This is just an overview. There might be a page or two or an article or two or a stat or two. Feel free to, this will show up about 5 more times, this little QR code. One more time, please link in with me because I want to go to, whenever you do one of these things, Chad, you want to take away new friends and contact. And I want to become your contact on LinkedIn, see how I can support you. My background is all about distress. I've not bought anything that wasn't in distress. And personally, I think what we're going to be looking at in the next few years, we will have a lot of opportunity. And so we're gearing up for that. I love this little great quote, accountable equities in the community. It's an accredited investor community that does offer private placements. So like I said, both of them. There's a girl in my life named Melanie. She and I really do actively manage both companies. We have wonderful staff, but there's a lot that we do together. This is our book. I mentioned that distress is the only thing I've ever known. Melanie and I bought something in '98, first house hack. You see how it has 2 front doors. It's just as that's an Ohio asset for you left fielders that are living in Ohio. And then jump forward after living in Europe, we come back and we start building the most fancy homes in the country at the time, like $5 million, 2,000 square foot houses on the beach. You know, very small, cute, highly stylized flips. And then later, distressed hotel. And today we built a platform business, and it's 3 companies. So I should probably have them on one slide, but today we've built around our core calling in life is to run a hospitality portfolio. That's kind of what we believe our calling is, and we'll talk about that why. But because that's our calling, we also had to build a platform. And this platform has grown bigger than even our first vision. And so it's accountable equity for partnerships and construction management for turning distress around. So those 3 companies create like a really solid platform. And then we do vertical investment on top of it. We do different verticals. All of the companies share one thing. We call it Viva Me Virtues. Actually, that's a typo. They're called Viva Me Virtues. And why do we share this slide? You guys are like, well, I'm not going to your training. I'm not going to be a server or a manager or a marketing director. It just at least helps you understand our ethos. We're focused on building teams where the person in the room actually has joy in the work they do. You'd hate to put somebody in a role that it goes against their nature. So we try to hire right, and we try to create an esprit de corps by hiring other great people that see joy in their work. Humility, we see that helps us keep our eye on the prize, that everyone has dignity. And that's why we don't have to get involved in political movements, because we already love everybody. We're not going to be perfect, but we're going to work at it. And then ministry is our special sauce, and that's where we try to turn our physical work into a gift for the heart of the guest, right? So physical things we're doing, like feeding you or building a building, we're doing them for an intention that you feel loved. And that's kind of how that's going with the physical properties even. You know, we try to show that we've been working on these, and they're places where people feel our love. All right. And like I said, everything's distressed when we buy it on purpose, because that's where a lot of value gets created. And this is my little track record for 6 projects in the hospitality world. I should have another track record of how many houses we built and apartments, not necessarily apartment buildings, but rentals. That was earlier. Then I went into hospitality. And so the gray line in the middle shows where I did it with the family office. I don't know if I'm pointing the right way. On the left is the family office work I did, where I created Icona with them, and it's still thriving. And left them and created with retail investors like yourselves, we created the new business on the right. And that's what this little flywheel shows. We're at the top, we're a community, we focus on legacy. We do that by buying things that are real, physical, and we put a team together. So we're a big teams group company. Technically, this month we'll have over 500 people receive a paycheck from one of our entities. Not all of those are full-time, of course. Many of them are part-time. And then we share prosperity. We have incentive programs for our staff to overachieve. We have goals to achieve for our investors. And that's probably why the growth has been pretty dramatic in our investor database. Many of you guys are probably part of that, and there's a lot of great stuff coming out later. Why distress? For me, I put too many bullets on here. My wife reviewed this with me. It's my 3rd time doing this presentation. She's like, what the heck are you doing with all the bullets? But there's an old argument that you make your money at the buy in real estate. So though I think that is blended with forced appreciation and forced business strategy to create appreciation, I also believe we all want the lowest possible basis in our asset purchase. And one of the reasons we've always liked it in resorts is because it allows us to spend the appropriate amount of capital on the reposition instead of overspending on a mediocre building. We'd rather buy a poor building that allows the capital to go into transformation. But there's other elements about distress. People forget this. You get generous zoning right when you buy distressed older buildings. Typically, you can't build that building again today with the new rule. I loved buying beachfront hotels or beachfront houses because you could rebuild right in that footprint, but you would never be able to get that permission on a vacant lot. So we do like repositioned older buildings because of that, the low basis, the zoning rights. There's also times when it's the business that's distressed, not necessarily the physicality. So there's all the different things that go into making this an extremely compelling type of investing, and this is really where we specialize. So we all know what distress is. So now you got to transform it. And what we're focused on typically is buying into a distressed market. Right now, we feel very lucky that we are in a market called hospitality. That's our core competency, is acquiring real estate that was once hospitality. And really, since the pandemic, two things changed. The travel patterns, we all know what happened for the first year and how that kind of created a lot of rockiness in the operating businesses of many of the hospitality businesses. But it also changed the debt structure. And I don't have a slide on this, but as money got cheaper in the housing market, use that as a paradigm we are all very familiar with over the last 10 years. As the money got cheaper, houses shot up because the same salary could afford a more expensive house because the debt was so low. So the more availability of money, the higher the prices go up on the basis of your purchase. The scarcity of money, the lower the purchase price on the basis. So we're going into, and we've been continually in a position where we can buy right if we buy these distressed and or underperforming hospitality assets. And it's primarily because of the debt market, really. You know, the operations business for us are way up. We're way up at Reno. You know, I think before the pandemic, 2 million in revenue, this year 25. So that's a 10x in 3 years. So there's a lot of new revenue, but it still hasn't attracted the debt markets back. Therefore, prices are still moderate. And so we're still in the market to buy. And COVID-19, of course, changed a lot of things, and it actually helped us inform some of our design. But distress exists in hospitality. That's why the title of this was, how are we going to transform this opportunity into wealth building? So this is tongue in cheek, 3 frameworks are how we look at this, and you can choose to use your frameworks or learn from our framework. And we're using the word arbitrage. I personally believe when you're around the family offices or when you're around successful investors that have made outsized returns like 20% IRR plus, it's usually because they bought an asset that was meant for X, but changed it to Y. That's called arbitraging the purpose or the function, right? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. We see the opportunity to buy, especially our specialty is to find deals in the world of hospitality, which are going to be more distressed than other markets because of the lack of lending and because of the functional challenges to run them. So we're going to continue to buy into those assets, but we're not necessarily always going to use them for the original intention. Matter of fact, we've never used any of our assets for their original intention. For example, a winery that became a resort with weddings wasn't actually the original purpose, but it was just a change in form. That's arbitrage in form, and that's kind of what we're very good at. This is when you take a distressed C-class multifamily and you make it a B-class by adding some amenities. That's just the form. Arbitrage in form and function has even more power, right? Because this is when you take a beat-up building, fix it, and change it to a different functional purpose, and we're going to explain that. Arbitrage, the most powerful engine of wealth creation by me, that's a quote by me. The strategy of arbitrage investing allows investors to see value in assets where others have dismissed it as worthless. The more worthless, the better in our market. You know, I love buying things that are 1/10 or 1/3 of its replacement value. And because we have a business plan that can execute, we get to get the value back up. And where it can be defined as purchasing the asset in one market for the purpose of selling it at a higher price in another market category. We all know Burr. This was the examples we did in Burr. So this was just form. We took a hotel, actually with form and function. We made it from a motel-y thing to a 4-star hotel. Here's an example of changing it from a winery to a wedding venue in a town. And of course, it requires this, right? It requires heavy duty construction and obviously operational management. So those are the types of things that have informed our focus on this. And of course, we got some, thank God, some success. The third type of arbitrage is when you walk away, or the third underwriting criteria for me was walk away. And here's where one of these are all deals we walked away from. We had the chance to buy 400-acre Williamsburg winery, but it was broken in multiple ways, and the bottom line was the price, the basis wasn't right. Otherwise, the business could have been turned around, but not if you bought it at the wrong basis. We also walked away from this deal a couple of years ago. So why am I pointing this out? I'm just showing you the amount of deal flow we've been going through over the last few years, and we've been choosing judiciously. As a matter of fact, these are all projects we walked away from after putting LOIs on them and determining that they were not going to meet the low basis entry, as well as turnaround, as well as arbitrage out exit. So we walked away. As a matter of fact, this is how many of them we looked at over the last 2 years. This is pre-distressed markets we're in now. Matter of fact, we just walked away from this property. Would have been our first ever hospitality to housing deal in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, if we would have bought it. And here is an interesting, just a good example. I'll share this as an example why we walked away. The market was, it shouldn't have a hotel for vacationing. It's in like the business district of Fort Lauderdale. We would have bought this, but because these were suites. What a great situation. Like they're like a 550 square foot living room, kitchenette, and bedroom. So really an apartment, an affordable apartment in a very expensive town. And the math would have worked if he would have accepted the price we offered, but he wanted 50% more. And I think he got it from some desperate institutional investor. But we were willing to pay more than all the money he had put in so he could get out. But that was it. And because we couldn't get that low basis, the deal broke. Otherwise, it would have been a very rapid. Here's what the math would have looked like if he would have accepted our offer. We would have been at about $100 to $25 a door, thousand a door, compared to the next purchased town apartments at $300,000 a door. So the basis in would have been modest. But at those other ones at $300,000 a door, they're getting $1,800, $1,900, $2,400 a month for their studios. We would have come in at $1,500. See, we wouldn't have been 1/3 the rent, but we would have been able to be 1/3 the basis. So that's the math that really got us intrigued. We started looking at hospitality to housing in our local market. This is very close to where we have assets. Here, we walked away because of crime, not because we probably could have made this financially work, but it was an undesirable area, so not all the metrics came together, so we walked away. So we've been on the hunt for this for a while, and that's where I want to talk a little bit about this model that very compelling. And since many of us, you and I, love multifamily for its stability and because it's a natural necessity of life, right? Food, beverage, food, shelter. We all have talked about this on every webinar in multifamily is the shortage of housing. But there's this specialty in housing. It's the affordable housing that's even the most challenging. And we're not talking about government related affordable. We're just talking about you and I need an affordable place to stay, and we choose the most reasonable, comfortable, but affordable. And I think we trade off size over expense. That's kind of the client that we're looking for in this world as we start to build this vertical in our market. Highly competitive barrier entry, of course, at the affordable price point. And we're obviously going to be in a very low basis position as we start to get into this. This is the key thing I was showing you, even in Florida. So in Florida, I told you the numbers were closer to 300,000 for a new apartment room being built, whereas we were going to be all in at 125. And we actually thought we had a shot at him agreeing to the number, but he, like I said, he got some kind of institutional dumb money out of New York or something, and so he was able to. At least I was told he's able to have it under contract much higher. But here the numbers wouldn't have been this awesome, but they would have been awesome. They would have been over 100,000 a room, but not 300. We're not the only ones getting into this world. It's something we've been looking at for a long time, and we've been very judicious. But it's obviously going to start happening. One of the surprises that I'm finding is it's supported by both sides of the aisle politically. You have the groups that are very much more progressive and socialist that really love this concept. Okay. And they're even willing in different areas of the country to offer grants for you to convert hospitality into housing. And then, of course, from a pure entrepreneurial, basic common sense, how much better would it be to offer clean, affordable housing at a price that is not much less than the neighbor, but be into the property at 50% what the neighbors are into that property. And that's the basic economic reason we're moving into it. This was the whole presentation I watched on hotels to affordable housing strategy conversions. And this was done by a group, a think tank at UC Berkeley. So how limited partners benefit? And we're doing pretty well on time. So we'll be able to take a lot of good questions there. This is just an example. So when we did Renault, we put that into a category of hospitality distressed arbitrage into form and function. And we meant to hold it for a portfolio for a legacy. So there, the positive change was in building up jobs in the community. Okay. And we continue to be in great standing with all different sides of the aisle politically in that area and in the community. And honestly, thank God we're a source for positive change in the market. And we've continued to grow on top of that community involvement. But one of the things our investors like is that we're not flipping that portfolio. We've built the value into it, and now we're going to hold those for legacy and perpetual ownership and distribution. Whereas, and so therefore the most tax efficient, they're the ones where you have your money back eventually in the business plan, but you don't have to, you're still a member of the equity. But when we get into the housing market, which we're going into with our newest project, hospitality to housing, here we are looking for a very straightforward return on investment for our investors. Here we know we can yield a 20% IRR. So we're looking here as it's a terminal project, not necessarily building a portfolio. So we're looking at a 3 to 5 year, own it, earn it, and leave it, right? So this has tax efficiency for a few years, but ultimately not your maximum tax efficiency like our legacy assets. You will make money each year, but then you'll ultimately get a windfall at the end. And here, what I like about this is there will be a termination date where we have return of capital, and we will promise the 20% IRR, or else the partners won't benefit, right? So that's an exciting way we're doing it. Here's a project we looked at recently in Pennsylvania, and you can see this we're going to pass on as well, because the partners we were going to do it with thought they missed the key component to our underwriting. They have a different business plan than us. They were planning on keeping it as an Airbnb, mixed use, nurses, things like that. I think that's a great business plan. The only challenge is, and this is the key reason why hospitality to housing and our business strategy is, we think, so dynamic. Despite the changing interest rates, housing debt or multifamily debt is still available. Every bank in America, they might charge you more, but they will give you the mortgage if the math on the project works. That is not the case in other commercial sectors. You could not get an office loan today at 98% of the banks, probably. I don't want to exaggerate, but most banks will not even look at your portfolio. Hospitality, it's 30% of the banks will look at hospitality to hospitality. But hospitality to housing, 100% of the banks would underwrite this. So our basic philosophy in what we're going to be doing in this portfolio that we'll build is it needs to meet the standards of Fannie and Freddie. The measurements, the amenities, the kitchens, the cooking areas. The business plan has to account for that, so that when the project is done after 2 years or 18 months or less, and it's leased up, it can then become a Fannie Freddie qualified loan. So then that will be a termination point. That'll make it cost more or be more valuable. Let me give you an example. If you were to take the revenue, the capitalization rate or the cap rate you get about twice as much benefit out of a multifamily if you fix it and get it into that category off of a hospitality asset. So it's called compressed cap rate. So hospitality has normal cap rates, 7, 8, 10%. And ours are better, they're closer to 7, but a normal one's closer to 10. This is closer to 5, right? Or 4.5. So you can really by qualifying as a multifamily, you'd have to get the zoning, you have to get everything. You actually change the value by changing its use. So that was the key part of arbitrage that I think was important. Here's the first deal our fund is already invested in. We're partnering with a good group out of Texas. And right now we'll build this vertical portion of our business, this new platform called hospitality to housing. And we'll do it with partnerships at first, and then we'll attract good people, maybe even people from LFI to join us and join our team actually, and help us become our own properly built multifamily operator with this specialty. And then, of course, over here, we've talked about Renault. This would be fun. Even if one of you guys or ladies join us, it would be awesome to give back on the 18th, play a little golf with some other investors. We invite all of you guys. It's not that far of a drive. We do have a hotel and rooms available. And let me know if you want one. We're going to be staying at the brand new LBI National. And then Saturday, we'll be doing an in-person mastermind, all accredited investors, keynote speakers, and then we'll do another one in December at Renault. So I think the key thing, Mr. Chat, is for me to take some questions.
Fantastic. Solid stuff. I really appreciate, this is, I want to treat this as a textbook lunch and learn that we like to have people come on and do. A lot of good education tidbits in there. Really appreciate the information, Josh. That solid stuff as usual from you. For those that are online, please drop your Q&A in the Q&A and we will have Josh walk through some stuff. But this is really interesting. I'm glad you talked about your strategy towards moving to the hotels to apartments by partnering with people. We always say, we don't like to be guinea pigs when somebody's trying to learn something new. So I like that you have that strategy in play, that's going to be your focus for the next couple of years. Any of those drawn up yet? You've got one deal in the works, I guess.
One deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've already, you turn away a few before you do
sure.
A bunch.
You want to make sure it's the right partnership. Yeah.
Exactly. And so here at Accountable Equity, we're also a little different than other groups. We do invest our own money in creating the infrastructure first. Mm-hmm. So we'll partner with some, but some of that one partner we're talking to really only wants to do Texas. We have 4 markets that all of our assets currently are focused on. One, we have great expertise and ability to buy in the northern markets, which allow us to have higher revenues and higher appreciation, even though the housing markets I want to be in and are in the south. The retail selling markets I want to be in are in the north because we get extremely high discretionary income on our weddings and all that kind of stuff goes really well in the north. Like this property is only 45 minutes from the Capitol building of Washington, D.C., but yet it looks like it's in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of the, you know what I mean? So this one, gets really high dollar value and it attracts, sometimes we get like even government people will buy the place, have secret security, lock it down because it's small. They'll take the whole place for 3 days. So up there, we get really good retail rates and we don't have any housing law issues, right? But when we're going to convert to housing, we want to be in Texas, Florida, and some other favorable states. So we have a portfolio being offered to us in Florida, this type of hotel to housing or hospitality to housing, in which we're looking at. And if we were to take that down, we would use our own construction management group and obviously hire local. But we would need and we would want to attract people from your community or bigger pockets that are actually more asset management focused, right? We have the capital partnership. We have the teams. We need strong players, kind of like the way you did, Chad, when you joined LFI. You became a key person in that vertical to run LFI. We need that kind of person in our multi-life. But let's talk about the questions. David Patel or Dave Dovel. Are you seeing more distress in hospitality right now when compared to distress in multifamily? So the answer is this. Currently, we are not going after the distressed multi, meaning I think the distress in multi comes in the next 12 months as people have to reposition their debt and they don't qualify for the debt they once qualified and they need to do capital call. To me, that's the ominous future for the normal multifamily syndication that just might get off balance, right? Nobody did anything wrong. The rate went up and now they're in distress. That is going to be an acute distress situation. Absolutely. And will we get involved in that? Maybe. Maybe we'll get involved in that. But for right now, that's not our business unit. Depends what teammates we find, Chad. That's the other thing. When we bring on teammates, they earn money, they earn equity. The stronger they are, the stronger we will build this vertical, because we have a lot of wonderful investors that want us to get into here, to have this low basis model, to have this long-term high yield. Okay. So, but for right now, we're looking at the multifamily where we can change the lending structure. Now, why will lending work for us where it might not work for that distressed one I just mentioned? The distressed one I mentioned was a $20 million multifamily deal, moderately capitalized, well leveraged. And then the rates change and they need new leverage. Now they're not capitalized enough to handle the fact that they won't get the same debt load. They might have gotten 15 million last year or 2 years ago. Now they're only going to be offered 12 million. So they're going to have to come up with $3 million. It could be a capital call. And if I was an investor, I would write up my check, because in the scenario I just mentioned, they may not have done anything operationally wrong, but they're about to lose the building because they got to come up with $3 million. That's going to happen to a lot of us. We may have to pony up to our own multifamily deal, but they can definitely get a loan. It just might be that 12 million. Now, in us, we're going to take a project, maybe a $2 million, $5 million acquisition, buy it out of distress. The building itself probably would have been worth 13 to 15 million to build today, but we're going to buy it for 4 to 5 million. So we've already got the building at an affordable rate. We can't get good debt on it, so we're going to buy it mostly with cash. Then we're going to spend 2 years, turn it into a multifamily, and have it appraised for 18 million. So that's how our business is going to work. And then we're not going to borrow 18 million because we don't even need 18 million. We're going to borrow 8 million because that'll pay off the investors and pay off the construction. And then we'll hold it and cash flow for the investor. So it's a low basis model, and changing the debt market is where the power comes from in this. Accountable Equity is undertaking 3 large projects. This new business idea is massive undertaking. How will you manage it? Have other projects been fully stabilized? Nothing's stabilized in our portfolio because it's like a 10-year plan. Our model is that. Julia, great question. It's that other mindset that where we build teams and we hire people. And to our credit, or to, it depends what kind of entrepreneur everybody is. We always knew that we were building a private equity group. Accountable Equity is not the same thing as Viva May. Viva May actually has several large executives running Viva May. We get to be the inspirational leaders, but there is a whole core leading them, and it takes time, right? You have to stabilize for about 3 years before the banks really credit you for being stable. So you can't speed up that clock. You can grow a lot of money, a lot of revenue, which is what we were good at. But even growing the revenue is funny. If you double your revenue in 1 year, it actually pushes your stabilization calendar back into a year. It's a positive, odd thing. So no, we are not done with those. And as a matter of fact, all of them can probably double. But we have lots of great, exciting things going on with those. The reason we're getting into this market is because we've witnessed all the opportunities we passed. And I think we're uniquely positioned because we've done housing and housing and rentals before, but we're really an operations business. And this is an operations business that I'm describing to you. It's not just buy the multifamily and put paint on it. It's more than that. And that's what we're really good at. So that's why we're going in to add a vertical, and we're going to add staff within that vertical. Hopefully that answered it. If you want to come online and talk, that's great too. There are many operators in multifamily and lots already focusing in Texas and Florida already. This area is new for your team. What's your value proposition that distinguishes you in space versus the folks that are established? I really don't think I would invest in a multifamily person that's doing this personally, because from my experience, I mean, I'm at every conference. I know 100 of those multifamily guys. They're awesome. They're great. They don't know how to run these kind of complex operating businesses. That's my experience. Now, it's a combination though. Should we partner with some of them? Absolutely. Because the lease up product and all that they've done 10 times. Great. That's the easy part, but I'm glad to have their support. The turnaround, the rezoning, the land development, the business plan and the construction management, that's what we do every day. So that's really where the value gets made here, and deal flow. And because we live in this world of hospitality, we have access to the deal flow, and we do actually have lending sources that are not traditional banks. So they actually like this model. Okay, our lending source, which is not meant to be permanent lending, and our equity like this model. So I think we're probably the best positioned for this opportunity. Why Texas and Florida? Because all the math says Texas and Florida. And we are actually looking at resorts in Texas and Florida for the last 2.5 years. So we are going to be in 4 markets, the North, the 2 parts of the North, and Texas and Florida. We actually always get offers for resorts in the Austin area, the wine country area, all the way up to Dallas. And we will own several of them there, and someday may even be headquartered there. We also get offered stuff in Florida all the time, golf courses, other things. So you probably saw that I turned down about 10 deals or so in the last 2 years. I didn't even mention the Florida and Texas ones. I should have. Hopefully that answers your question. That's why I think we're the best positioned to take advantage of this opportunity.
Good. Josh, can you speak to, we have a couple different operators that focus on maybe office space to go convert to multifamily and potentially malls, the dying kind of asset classes that are out there. How much are you bleeding into some
I
of
love
those?
that.
Yeah.
I love it. I wouldn't pay more than 10%. So the good news about our model, Sheraton that we looked at in Fort Lauderdale about a year ago and took 6 months to do due diligence, and we ended up not doing it. The infrastructure of the building was modest changes. Electrical load per room, new panel, a new, just really to handle an electric kitchen. Otherwise, and then physical finishes. An office one, so therefore we could have bought that one at 1/3 of its price, or even 50%, and still probably worked out. Obviously, just from a construction point of view, there's nothing similar about office to housing. So as long as you're buying it for nothing, I would do it all day, because they're probably in really cool locations.
Right.
But no, there you got to budget almost nothing on the purchase. Whereas we can pay something.
Makes sense. It's like we got another question that popped up.
Oh, how are we going to fund it? G48764. I love that name. How do you typically fund the purchase? So we do it because now we're respected in this whole idea of distressed hospitality, which is another reason why I think we're in the right spot for this asset class. So we actually have lines of credit from a version of the bridge debt, construction debt, as long as we're arbitraging. They would not bridge us if we were just keeping it the same, but they will let us have two years of good, affordable debt, not cheap, but affordable debt, as well as equity. We get equity from our own partners, and then we have bridge lines of credit up to 25 million. We don't necessarily use them, but because of our track record, we have them. And I think that's another way we can leverage our experience.
Makes sense.
Will there be another EIF fund? Thanks, Craig. Yep, I just did a video about it. You'll get an e-blast if you're on our email list this afternoon. It comes out September 15th. It'll be probably, just get a reservation on it. You don't have to buy it today, but get a reservation on it, because I think it'll sell out in a few days. We're not doing as big of a fund. The EIF is the one where people get to own equipment, and because they own the equipment, they get all the bonus depreciation, which is 80% this year. It hits their good positively, hits them on the taxes this year, and then they get immediate amortization and high yield on the money over the next 5 years. Steady checks every month until you're paid down and all. So it's really a good blend of tax and cash flow, tax strategy and cash flow. Yep. Those were great questions. Sean, will you utilize CDF monies in these new ventures? Yep. That's, as a matter of fact, Sean, that's a great question. One investor a couple weeks ago invested $1 million of their own money in our CDF fund. Not because it's just another debt fund. It is a nice debt fund, and you do get double-digit yield if you put that much in, but you don't have to. The reason he did it is because we let him have an equity rollover, we called it. So he's going to wait and see what deals he likes over the next few years, and he's going to make 10% on his money. And whenever he likes one of our equity deals, we're going to allow him to pull it right over. It's called a rollover into one of our funds. So kind of a nice way to play cash flow and have an option on equity later. So that's been growing quite nicely, and we will use that as part of this. So that's the thing that accountable equity has always thought about it. Investors, giving them the options they want. And really, we've built this platform, and it's the platform and the ability to hire great people that will allow us to fully maximize this vertical over the next year.
Good stuff. Any other questions? Well, we got Josh alive.
Great questions. Thanks for doing that. Sometimes you go on these and no one's there, and you're like, oh, I guess they weren't there. You guys are always there. Thank you so much.
We usually have a verbal group, which I love. So we love.
When is the LFI event?
Yes, so we officially have announced it for October 4th, 5th, and 6th is what we are looking at. So there should be some stuff coming to your inbox that'll ask you about your participation, but hopefully you'll be able to make it out this year for us.
Absolutely, this year. I got it.
We get you all the way to Steubenville. We can get you a little further to Columbus.
A little further. I like Ohio.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, it looks like we're kind of hitting it. Oh, as soon as I say that, of course, one more comes in. Any promotion code? Oh,
yeah, good question. Mr. G48764. You know what? I like that idea. So because I don't have it set up now, can you
you can let us know.
Just go to our website. Like yeah, we will. Yep, great idea. I might even I have a really nice incentive I might do. So I will I wasn't thinking of that ahead of time.
Nice. Oh,
had another Dobble's got great questions. Had another quick question. I think you mentioned this in the slide, but I have missed it. Could you go over what investment options you could be offering limited partners in the newest vertical of the business? Yeah, the simple way we're going to do our fund is it's going to be 8% yield up to 12% yield in preference payments. You choose by putting more money in. We'll probably pay that in a pro rata, a partial accumulation, partial cash flow. And that way we keep the business as stable as possible. So you'll get that nice high yield on your money while we have your money. Then you will get a redemption at 20% IRR, meaning we will satisfy your investment when we hit 20% IRR and you have your money back. So at that point, it's a terminal project. That's why I say it's not a legacy hold. It's 3 to 5 years quicker if we're better at this. And that way you guys have your money back with 20% on your money annually. That's our model. So high pref and a good 20% promise. And then at that point, you get to be done with that deal, redeploy your money in other deals.
Great. We love the diversity there. That's for sure. Well, cool. Mr. McCallum, a pleasure as always.
Thank you very much, Chad.
We enjoyed it. Again, I think this is textbook kind of lunch and learn. Appreciate the education tidbits that you shared. People can reach out to you directly with other questions, but we look forward to hearing from you more in the future as well. So we will see you around, I'm sure.
As they leave, if they want this presentation, here it is. And by the way, remember I was mentioning you can reach out to me. Here's a great way to just call us or text us and we'll get you that LFI deal.
Yep.
And if you send it to you, Chad.
Yeah, if you send it to me, we'll get it out to the group as well. So that'll be another way they can find it. So perfect.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it. Have a good one, Josh. Thanks for coming on again. Bye-bye.